What we're going to go over now is how to combine integers together. But before we can even combine integers together, the very first thing we need to do is determine whether or not a number is positive or negative. This is going to be real easy, but for some reason students have a hard time determining, hey, is this number positive or negative? And it's really important when you go to combine things together, because the rules revolve around whether or not the number is positive or negative. It's real simple. Look in front of the number. If there is a positive sign in front of the number, then it's positive. If there is a negative sign in front of the number, then it's negative. And if there's no sign in front, then the number's positive. And we're going to give some examples of this to show how you can tell whether or not a number is positive or negative. So let's look at the examples. We're going to look at this right here. I need to determine whether or not this 12 is positive or negative. While I look in front, just like my rules just got through saying, if there is a positive sign, it's positive. If there's a negative sign, it's negative. But if there's no sign, that 12 right there then is positive because there's no sign in front of it. Is this 14 positive or negative? While I look in front, there's a positive sign right there in front of it. That means that 14 is positive. I go to this next example. 12, I look in front, there's no sign in front of it. That means it's positive. But look at this 14 right here. I look in front of that 14, there is a negative sign in front of that 14. That means that 14 is negative. This example, this 12, is it positive or negative? While I look in front, there's a negative sign in front of it. That means it's negative. This 14 right here, is it positive or negative? It's negative because there's a negative sign in front of it. Once you determine whether or not a number is positive or negative, then you're going to use these rules to combine those numbers together. If the signs are the same, you're going to add those numbers together and then keep the sign. That means a positive plus a positive is going to be positive. A negative plus a negative is going to be negative. You look at the signs, see if they're the same, you take your calculator out, you add them together, and then you keep the sign. If the signs are different, you subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. And we're going to show you how to do that with the calculator, because there's different ways, but you need to be able to take numbers from different areas and combine them together using these rules right here. So make sure you've got these rules written down, because we're going to use these rules over and over and over again to combine numbers together. So let's look at some examples here. Let's look at these first two examples. 12 and 2. Is the 12 positive or negative? Look in front, it's positive. The 2, is it positive or negative? It's positive. If the signs are the same and both of these numbers are positive, then I add them together. So take my calculator out. 12 plus 2 is 14. Is it going to be a positive 14 or a negative 14? If the signs are the same, you add them together, keep the sign. This one right here, this 12, is it positive or negative? It's negative. This 2, is it positive or negative? It's negative. The signs are the same. That means I'm going to add them together. 12 plus 2 is equal to 14. Is it going to be a positive 14 or a negative 14? If the signs are the same, I add them together and keep the sign. It's a negative 14. So if the signs are the same, add them together, keep the sign. And how do you tell whether or not it's positive or negative? You look in front. This 12, I look in front, it's negative. This 2, I look in front, it's positive. The signs are different. If the signs are different, I subtract the numbers. I don't worry about the signs right now, I just subtract the numbers. So I go 12 minus 2 is equal to 10. Now I need to determine if that 10 is going to be positive or negative. Well, if the signs are different, I subtract and take the sign of the larger number. That means it needs to be a negative 10. This one over here, what kind of 12 is that? Positive. What kind of 2 is that? Negative. If the signs are different, you subtract and take the sign of the larger number. 12 minus 2 is 10. Is it going to be a positive 10 or a negative 10? I take the sign of the larger number. The larger number is 12. It's a positive 10. It doesn't matter if the numbers are written horizontally or vertically. The rules are still going to be the same. I've got an 18. What kind of 18 is it? I look in front. It's a positive 18. What kind of 11 do I have? It's positive. Signs are the same. I add them together. I keep the sign. Next one. What kind of 18? It's negative. What kind of 11? Positive. If the signs are different, I subtract. So I go 18 minus 11 is 7. Now I need to determine if that 7 is going to be positive or negative. Well, look at my numbers. 18 is bigger than 11, so my answer is going to be negative 7. If the signs are different, subtract and take the sign of the larger number. If the signs are the same, what kind of 18 is this? Negative. What kind of 11 is this? Negative. The signs are the same. If the signs are the same, I add those together. 18 plus 11 equals 29. Is it going to be a positive 29 or negative 29? Well, if the signs are the same, I add them together just like I did, and I keep the sign, negative 29. Right here, I've got a positive 18 and a negative 11. Signs are different, so I subtract. Minus 11 is 7. Is it going to be a positive 7 or a negative 7? I take the sign of the larger number, which is this one right here. It's a positive 7. It doesn't matter if the numbers are vertical, horizontal, or if I do something like this. I've got numbers all over the place. I'm going to just take two numbers and put them together, like this right here. What kind of 14 is this? It is a positive 14. What kind of 15 is this? It's a negative 15. If I want to put those two numbers together, I have to use those rules. Are the signs the same or are they different? They're different. Since the signs are different, I subtract. 14 minus 15, 1. Is the 1 going to be positive or negative? Well, I look at this and it tells me this is a negative 15. That means my answer is going to be a negative 1. I look at the signs. If the signs are the same, I add them together. If the signs are different, I subtract, and I use my rules to determine whether or not it's positive or negative. So I've put those two together. Let's try two that have the same sign. This one is a negative 18. Need something else that has a negative 3. If the signs are the same, I'm supposed to add those two numbers together. 18 plus 3, 21. Is that 21 going to be positive or negative? Well, if the signs are the same, I add them together, keep the sign. It's a negative 21. That's what I get if I take a negative 18 and a negative 3 and put them together. I get negative 21. Let's try two where the signs are different. Okay, I've got a 12 right here and a negative 2 right here. Signs are different. What am I supposed to do if the signs are different? Subtract. 12 minus 2, 10. Is my answer going to be positive 10 or negative 10? Well, I take the sign of the bigger number. 12 is bigger than 2, positive 10. That's what I get when I take a positive 12 and a negative 2 and put those two together. We're all leading up to something that looks like this. You use these rules when they give you expressions or equations that need to be simplified. You use these kind of rules so that you can do things like this. Where are the integers in here? Well, I've got a 12 and I've got a 14. What kind of 12 is that? It is a negative 12. What kind of 14 is this? It is a negative 14. What am I supposed to do if the signs are the same? I'm supposed to add those together. 12 plus 14 is 26. Is it going to be a negative 26 or a positive 26? If the signs are the same, I add them together, keep the sign. That's me combining those two together right there. So this is what we're leading up to, something that looks like this, so that we can combine things together even though they're not right beside each other. You can even combine these together using those rules. What kind of 5 is this? It's a positive 5. What kind of 10 is this? It's a negative 10. If the signs are the same, I add them. What if the signs are different? I subtract. I'm going to take 10 minus 5 is 5. This just happened to have an x with it. We'll go over that later on. But as far as these rules go, if the signs are different, I subtract and take the sign of the larger number. These are the kind of problems we're leading up to when you combine integers together.